And if you look at the Bernie Sanders who won against the Republicans and Democrats, the guy who actually got to the position of running, what his position was on the border was like, open borders is the position of the Koch brothers, so they can bring in laborers that they could exploit, that don't have any rights, that are not members of unions, that they can break strikes with, that they can hyper exploit. And I believe in immigration, but I want to have an immigration process when people come in here, they join a union, before they get to work, as opposed to the way that labor is being used in America, which is this underclass that is outside the law, and that when capital needs, they can use the state and immigration processes to exploit them. And so that was, by the way, the position of the trade unionist movement in America. The trade unionist movement in America always broke on immigration and was like, no, we should have immigration controls. And it just so happens that those are the people who abandoned the Democrats this cycle.
The woke schools are going to come for you.
We'll say again?
The woke schools are going to come for you.
I don't care. I mean, and honestly, and here's the thing. I am very pro-immigration. I recognize that borders and nationalities are constructs, and as somebody who takes the Marxist critiques seriously, there's just the human race. Like at a specific strike, at a specific factory, if the workers get together and unionize, and they go on a strike, and then the Koch brothers go down to Tijuana, and they grab a bunch of laborers to come and break the strike, that is effectively a way of countering a class-based collective movement. And that causes tension between the members of the working class. And the solution isn't to just be like, no, the Koch brothers are right. I can't believe you're trying to enforce the border. The solution for the state should be, I'm on the side of the working class that is organizing, and that the company can't do that. And that was the position that Bernie Sanders had. It's not an anti-immigration position. It's not a racist position. It's not even a pro-border position. It's a pro actually understanding what's really existing and where the political powers are and what they're trying to accomplish.
The common sense position. That's what it is. I mean, yeah, some people will respond to exactly what you just said, which is something I actually tweeted a couple of weeks ago and I got a lot of hate for.
I'm not worried about hate.
Some people took it out of context and they were like, oh, but yeah, all that really says is that American trade unionists are fascists, or that they're all racist settlers. And it's like, okay,
wow, the CIA was typing in your comments. I can't believe.
These are the same people who think these are the same type of activist people who are in Bernie's ear saying that you can't say that position on borders because you'll quote unquote lose the Latino votes, which is bullshit, because they never met, they think Latino people are they have a very patronizing way of looking at race. It's honestly really embarrassing because, countries like Mexico, even, for example, which is ruled by a government which is left of center, would be quite left for American standards. And they don't have open borders, and they also don't want their people massively leaving and going to America. Why would any country want its own people to be massively
people equals
leaving?
Power?
It's not good for the global South. When did lefties get the idea that it's a progressive position to allow essentially for brain drain, for people to massively leave, not just brain drain, but also for the mass exploitation of illegal migrant labor, which, yes, I know that they would say, okay, well, why don't we just allow them to immediately get rights and get healthcare? And it's like, okay, well, how are you going to sell that position, which is, okay, you have illegal migrants get all these positions. Why don't you just make it so it's easier for people to come in legally? I'm also pro-immigration for in a regulated process. I think immigration actually in many cases is probably better. In Canada, I think we could use more of it because we're a very tiny country compared to you guys, and we have a lot of potential. But there's rational ways to do immigration properly, right? And this completely acting like illegal immigration isn't a problem, and that yes, open borders because maybe that's a good thing in the future socialist utopia, in a future setting where you have a stateless society. Okay, sure, but that's not what we have.
Even development. Well, we have more even development across the globe. Yeah. People will leave because they're making a choice rather than what's happening, which is economic coercion. And this is another point, just to talk about the Democratic Party and Bernie and AOC in particular. One of the reasons I do like them is they've been striking out against American foreign policy mistakes. And one of the major errors in the Biden administration is not looking at the real causes of the immigration surge. What happened? Why were there so many people here claiming asylum? Well, it's because
sanctions on Venezuela.
Trump and Biden who doubled down on it, did more incredibly ruinous sanctions on Cuba and Venezuela. And a lot more people left those countries because they were economically coerced, because the United States has tried to effect political regime change, because we are following the Truman doctrine of interventionism anywhere on the globe that there's political system we don't like. Which basically, some people say authoritarian, but in reality, it's just anybody who doesn't support the United States having complete hegemony of inside their borders is somebody the United States is intervening. Whereas FDR, the old Democratic Party, they had what was called the good neighbor policy, which is we don't interfere in your domestic affairs. We don't use military interventionism inside your country. And we treat Latin American countries like sovereign countries, and we trade and we interact positively. Democratic Party abandoned that with Truman after the Wallace coup in the 1944 DNC, and they put Truman, the ultimate machine politician, to do anti-communism. The United States has adopted this imperialist view of the rest of the world. That is why we had an immigration issue, is people don't want to leave their country. They don't want to leave their family and their friends and the culture that they're accustomed to in the general sense. Most people are not trying to walk 1,000 miles, to get to the border and then work a shitty agricultural job where they make $5 an hour. This is not what people in these countries are doing. They're doing it out of economic desperation, out of the love of their family and trying to seek a better life. If we just took our boots off the necks of countries like Venezuela, if we just paid them a fair price for their oil, for example, we wouldn't have as high of an inflation surge. Oil prices would not have went up as much if we had just bought their oil instead of sanctioned them. But the Democratic Party, in favor of American hegemonic pursuits, and I think those are wrong, but also economically harmed our country, created a migrant crisis, and this kind of interventionist foreign policy was not even kind of discussed and brought up as a cause of these problems. And so when I talk about immigration, it's not because I'm trying to prevent people who want to come here from coming here, or I'm opposed to it. I'm actually very pro-immigration. It's just I look at the actual material reality that's being effectuated to real people, and I don't just live in the world of an intellectual exercise. Mm-hmm. And that is what Bernie Sanders 2016 was like, and Bernie Sanders 2020 was much closer to that intellectual exercise and, the what I term rad lib activist sphere.
Yeah, I 100% with you there. And even I know the reality is that the Democrats and Republicans are going to want to run on a kind of American exceptionalist, American hegemonic narrative. It's kind of almost unrealistic to expect them not to, because they're a two-party cartel that.
Well, there's a lot of flavors of that, right?
It's also beholden to a deep state. You mentioned Harry Truman. What happens under Harry Truman with NSC 68, and you get the creation of the national security apparatus that develops into
the American Gestapo,
the deep state, effectively. I talk about this in my work, Managed Democracy, the mini doc.
Yeah, that's what I watched. It was very good.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm very proud of that one. And yeah, but even if they wanted to frame the issue in an American exceptionalist way, they could say we're going to support a Marshall Plan to kind of help the countries where mass immigration is affecting, where mass immigration is happening, right? Because Haiti, for example, if any country deserves aid from not just America, but countries across the developed world, especially France, really gets a pass when it shouldn't, because they basically destroyed Haiti and they're responsible for Haiti's total collapse. And Haiti is a country that kind of deserves everyone's help. You could kind of frame helping Haiti as a way to stop the migrant crisis in a sort of American exceptionalist way. I'm even just being real here for Democrats, if they wanted to kind of deal with the issue effectively, because instead they just pivoted right on immigration, but on the right wing's terms, which they will never win on. They just kind of did it stricter border without looking at the causes, right? And if you just do that, the right's always going to win because they play that.
They have credibility.
They have credibility. They also talk about it the most. The Dems kind of flipped on that. The Dems are the opposite. They actually are hard on the border, but they act like they're not. So their whole strategy is off. They could have maybe outflanked the Republicans if they just actually talked about the root causes. And